Hi and welcome. I'm Jewels Muller, founder and CEO of Chicks Connect. And today I want to talk to you about getting organized. I know some of you are overwhelmed and stressed out with all of the things that you have to do on a daily basis. So what I want to do is teach you the 5 easy steps in getting organized today and then maintaining that organization. So let's get started right away. Okay, you'll want to make sure that you have maybe a pencil and some paper, and you'll also have these as a download. So you'll be able, everything that I'm sharing with you today, I'm also going to give you as a download. So how to organize a physical space in 5 easy steps. So first of all, you want to prepare the space, time, and tools. The next step is evaluate and classify the items. And then the third step is taking action. So is it something that you want to keep here, keep elsewhere, donate, or toss? The fourth step is contain and display. And the fifth step is everything has a home. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about why people are disorganized in the first place. Maybe you've said this before. I have trouble finding things. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough space. I am too overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. I can't get rid of things. And then maybe you have some other suggestions of things that you tell yourself when it comes to organization. Well, let's start with step 1, which is preparation for organizing a space. So first of all, just like anything else, it's not going to get organized on its own. So you have to determine the amount of time you'll spend on the organizing project and actually schedule it on your calendar. So make an appointment with yourself. Remember, it always looks worse before it gets better. Write down the names of the people who use the space. So let's say you're organizing your bedroom and you and your husband are in that space. Then you'd want to make sure that both of you are on board with the organizing project. Each person who uses the space needs to fill out the activities and materials worksheet. And then, like I mentioned before, each person who uses the space needs to be on board with the organizing project, or you might find that someone may sabotage all your effort. Then you want to understand your big why for this project. So let's go back to the bedroom, and let's say that you really want to get that space organized because you can't sleep at night. Maybe you're overwhelmed and you're restless, and you're hoping to create a sanctuary, a beautiful sanctuary for you and your partner. And you want to just have the things in that space that are really necessary for making that dream a reality. So prior to the organizing process, you'll need large labels that read, keep here, keep elsewhere, donate, toss, shred, long-term storage, projects, safe deposit box, and important. Often when I'm working with an organizing client, we'll come across things and they'll say, oh my gosh, I've been looking for this, or this is something I need to do right away. Put that in the important tab, especially if you're using a variety of different appointments to get this organizing project complete. Have that important box for things that you know you need to get to right away. Arrange your labels in your organizing space where they make the most sense. Never leave the space until the initial sort is finished, or you could get off track. So this is the preparation with materials and activities. So everyone is completing this particular form if they are a user of that space. So first of all, list your space. So maybe it's the bedroom, maybe it's the garage, and then your name. List the other people who use this space. And then list the activities that you do in this space and list the materials necessary to carry out those activities. So let's say that you're in the garage and the activities that take place in the garage are maybe gardening, woodworking, cleaning supplies and materials. So maybe you need a space for that. Maybe you also want to park your car in the garage. And I know that I've had clients that's their big why. They want to be able to park the car in the garage, and some garages are too packed to do that. So that's been a goal of theirs. So think about all the things that take place in the garage. What are those activities? And what are the materials necessary for those activities to become a reality? So let me use this as an example. If you do not wrap presents in your garage, then the wrapping paper, wrapping paper and tape and scissors probably shouldn't be kept in the garage. But if you have a craft room or a spare room or somewhere where you do wrap presents, then think of the wrapping present as the activity and what supplies and materials are needed in order to carry out that activity, and have those things in really close proximity. Now you want to talk about your big why for organizing this space. So let's go back to the garage. How will the garage look? When it's all completed, what will your garage look like? How will the garage feel? How will it function? And how will the space benefit you and others using that space? So the preparation, step 1 in getting organized, the 5 easy steps with the preparation, really takes quite a bit of time before you even dive into that organizing project. So give it the time it deserves. Make thought about the way that you want to. Dedicate the time and tools necessary to really have that space ready to go when you're ready for your sorting process. So the next step is evaluate and classify. This is step 2. So like items go with like items. Let's use a different space. Let's say that we're now in the bedroom, and you already know what you want your bedroom to function. You don't want any of your work stuff in your bedroom. You don't want any of your dishes or things from the kitchen that are in your bedroom. You just want your bedroom to be a safe place where you can go and build on your relationship with your partner. And also maybe you want a few books in there that aren't books that stress you out, but books that bring you joy and help you feel calm and help you get to sleep. Maybe you want a few photos that are hanging on the wall and things like that. So as you're going through and you're thinking about evaluating, classify all the items that are in your bedroom, you want to put like items with like items as you're working on your sort. You want to start in one area of the room or space and work your way around from top to bottom, left to right. So typically when I'm working with a client, we'll go in, we'll open the door, and we'll start just to the left of that door. And we'll look, and there might be something leaning up against the wall on the ground. And so I will ask my client if that's something that fits the space. Does it fit your definition of this space? And if so, then we want to keep it here. So we'll get to that in the action space a little bit later. But we don't want to miss any portion, any item that's in that room. So you want to go top to bottom. So if there's a picture hanging on the wall, if there's something near the ceiling or on the top of a shelf, you want to make sure to identify every single item in that space and whether or not it fits your definition of that space and should stay in the area. So determine a space or chunk it down and stay in that space until it's completely sorted. So for example, we talked about going in a room and starting left to right, top to bottom. Now if you only have a half an hour of time, you might want to pick a specific space. So maybe you have a dresser and you say, today is the day we're going to organize the dresser. So you start from the top of the dresser, and again, you don't skip any item on the top of that dresser. You want to identify each one of those. Don't skip the item. Make the decision if it's something that you love and use, and if not, then somebody else can use it. So, and that brings us to our next point. Remember that if someone else would love to have your item, if you do not love it or use it, it's time for you to get rid of it. And revisit your why if you're working on this project in space and you get stuck. So if you get stuck, go back to that why and say, okay, this is how it's going to feel, this is how it's going to look, this is how it's going to function, and I'm really motivated in order to get this completed. So that's step 2, evaluating and classifying the items. And it kind of goes in conjunction with step 3, which is taking the action. So as you're going right to left, top to bottom, left to right, top to bottom, or doing an entire dresser, you want to keep these questions in your mind. Is this something that I want to keep here because these things fit the definition of my space? They are part of the materials or supplies necessary for the activities in that particular space. Is this an item that's listed on my preparation sheet? And are these things that I love and use? If so, if you answer yes to all of those things, then they will be kept in the space. Now, the second one is keep elsewhere. So these are things that you love and use, but remember when I talked about the dishes in your bedroom, or maybe you have duct tape in your bedroom for some reason, and it belongs out in the garage. Or maybe you have the dog brush and it belongs in the utility room or something. So think about the things that you definitely use and you love them, but they don't fit the definition of that particular area that you're working on right now. Now, these are things that you want to keep, but they belong to a different space. Do not leave the space to deliver these items until the sorting process is over. So have a tub with the label that says keep elsewhere, and then put those items in that tub for delivery at the end of your sorting process. So if you've given yourself 3 hours to work on your organizing process, on your organizing event, then you want to make sure to stay there the entire 3 hours and make sure that you deliver at the end of that session, not during. Because what happens if we leave our area? We're going to get distracted. That's right. You're going to see something that you need to put away over here or over there, or you go in the garage and put that duct tape away, and then you get overwhelmed with all the projects that are necessary in the garage. So I don't want you to leave your organizing space. I want you to stay committed to the area that you have committed to and use that time efficiently and effectively. All right, so we have keep here. Those are things that fit the definition. Keep elsewhere. Those are things that we love and use, but they belong somewhere else. And the third one is donate. These are items that someone else would love and use. These are to be sorted and taken to the trunk of the car for donation. Time must be dedicated to delivering these items, or you may sneak back in during a weak moment. So make sure to really put the donate items. These are things you do not love and you do not use. They may even be things that are bringing you stress or overwhelm, and there's just no need to continue to have those in your home. So put those in the tub called donate, as long as they're in good working condition, because someone else might want to use those. And then toss. It's definitely, we do have some items that we're hanging on to that are really garbage. They're outdated. They're clearly of no use to anyone else. And in those toss items, you might want to look for things that can be recycled, and then just things that are purely garbage. And then other. So go to the list of labels and take down some notes. So we had that list of labels. I'm going to scoot back to those really quickly. All right, so we went over the keep here, keep elsewhere, donate, toss. Shred is pretty obvious. If they are documents that you're getting rid of and there's sensitive material on those documents, you want to have a shred pile. And there are different organizations that will shred your items for you that you could pay for, or you may have a shredder at home. Long-term storage. Sometimes we keep things that are near and dear to our heart, and we call those keepsakes. So you may want to start a tub for long-term storage or keepsakes if they are things that you want to keep. And sometimes we need to keep paperwork for long-term. We need to have it for 7 years for tax purposes, but we don't necessarily need it right at our fingertips, and we don't need it to occupy our office space or our bedroom space. And so we can box those things up and label them long-term storage and label them with the information that's inside. Now, always when I work with clients, especially my creative ones, they have multiple projects going on. And so I want to talk about this one really quickly. Sometimes they're sewing projects, sometimes they're craft projects, sometimes they're business projects. What I'd like you to do with these is make sure to bundle them up as easily as possible and then put a project due date on them. So let's say you have a sewing project that you're working on and your goal is to have it completed by February 20th, 2017. So put that due date on there and then schedule time within your calendar to work on that project. So the projects won't finish themselves, just like organizing won't get completed by itself. Often when I'm working with a client in their closets, I will find a lot of clothing that they'll say, oh, I just need to hem those, I need to sew a button on, things like that. So actually identify when you are going to do that, and then make a commitment to yourself that if you look back in your closet and February 20th, 2016 has already passed, you will either do it right then or you will donate those to someone who will do it. So a lot of times we have negative self-talk that goes on, like, oh, I should have done that, I should have done this, I should have done that, why haven't I done that yet? And we really have no intention of doing it at all. If that's the case, get rid of the things that are causing the negative self-talk and free yourself up for the positive, self-affirming talk that you need to have. I'll tell a quick story here. I had a client that had two clear plastic giant tubs in her closet, and they were filled with baby pictures and memorabilia. And she said she keeps them right by the door so that she'll stub her toe on them every time she walks in and out of her walk-in closet. And oh, bless her heart, she wanted to stub her toe so that it hurt, so that it would remind her that she needs to do those baby projects, those baby books and memorabilia collection tubs and things like that. And she wasn't doing them week after week, day after day, and she was stubbing her toe, causing physical pain, not only the mental pain of the negative self-talk, but she was causing herself physical pain because she thought that would motivate her to create those. And so I asked her a simple question. I said, do you like to scrapbook? And she said, no, I find it horrible and I don't feel like I'm creative and I really don't want to do it. So I said, what if we took those tubs and found someone who loves to scrapbook that could put those together for you? Would you be willing to pay someone to do that? And she said, yes, I never even thought of that. So we saved her poor toes and found a solution for one of those projects. So take a moment right now as I'm talking and really identify what are the projects that are negative, that are filling your head with negative self-talk about yourself, about yourself. What are the things that you're telling yourself you should do that you aren't doing? Write those things down and make a commitment to either delegating those things, deleting them all together, delaying them for a certain point so that you don't have to think about them for the next 6 months, or just do it. So, another thing that I have, I call these things the 5 Ds, and the other one is double up. So find a partner. Let's say you don't love to scrapbook, but let's say you have a girlfriend that does love to do it. Maybe you could take your tubs together and she could kind of help you and teach you so that you would have a hand in the project and really getting those baby books put together. The other thing is, remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, and to love yourself up as you're working through these processes. No more negative self-talk. Give yourself permission to let things go, to do them imperfectly, and just making sure that you have a wonderful, I'm going to stop for a minute. Give yourself permission to let items go and to do things at your own ability and your own pace, and stop the negative self-talk. Okay, so that's for projects. The next one, safe deposit box. So it's a good idea to have things off-site. So in case your home burnt down or something, then you would have the important documents somewhere off-site. So have a safe deposit box or a friend where you can keep things. And then we talked about a little bit earlier that important label. So if you come across things like, often we find maybe jewelry that needs to be fixed, and that could also go in the projects unless you want it done right away, which will go in the important. We've also found checks that haven't been deposited yet. So I love it when we find our clients' money. So that's another one that might go in the important one, or any documents that need to be filled out, permission slips that need to be signed for the kiddos, things like that. So we're going to scoot on back now. The fourth step, and this is where sometimes people get confused and do step 4 before anything else. So this may be you, I don't know. Maybe you've said, oh, today I'm going to organize my office. And so the first thing you do is get in your car and you go to Office Max or Staples and you buy all these organizing gadgets. And then you come home and it's lunchtime, and then you have an appointment in the afternoon. And now you've just added all these great organizing tools and systems and gadgets as clutter to your office because they don't have any use or any purpose yet. So have you ever done that? Or maybe you've said, oh, we're going to organize the garage today. And so you'll go off to Home Depot and you'll buy 24 tubs, and then they'll come home and they'll become part of the clutter because you don't have any idea what you're supposed to put in them or how it's going to work. So what we do is say, you wait until you've done your sort and purge. You wait until you have your big why for your space. How do you want this space to even look and function and feel? And then You go through all the items and you determine what you want to keep in this space because it fits the definition of your space, and it is it's a material or a supplies necessary to carry out the activity that belongs in that space. Then in step 4, you figure out, how am I going to contain what I have left in this space? And maybe that's a file system, maybe it's a binder system, maybe it is tubs or decorative boxes, or maybe you need new shelving to go vertical. So let's talk about the different ways to contain and display. So this is step 4. What system or product fits my style and my needs? So for example, files versus binders. If you find that you have a huge 2-file stack, you might realize that you don't like to file, and filing might not be the best system for you. And instead, you might decide to create a binder system and stick the items in sleeves, plastic sleeves, rather than files. So you have to talk a little bit with yourself and figure out, what is my behavior? What do I do? Do I typically love to file things and then go looking for things in files, or would I rather flip through a book that's categorized to find the things that I need? The next one is action file on top of the desk or in a drawer. And so how we create action files are a couple of different ways, but one way is, I'm with a client, let's say, and they have an island in their kitchen, or maybe they have a sidebar area. Typically, I'll find that that's filled with paperwork, and it's usually the mail that has come in. Someone brought the mail in and dumped it on the island or on the kitchen table or on the sidebar, and it becomes a catch-all for all of this paperwork. Well, what we do is we create action files. So we take all of that paperwork and we put it into a file system that we call action files, because these are files that you need to get to on a daily or weekly basis. They aren't reference files. Reference files are things like your insurance binder or your mortgage, bills that have already been paid. Things like that can go in the reference files, and those can be tucked away in your office. But these are things that need to have action right away. So these things need to be attended to. And so we create an action file based on what the item is. So we take all that paperwork. So imagine you know where your landing space is when you bring that mail in, and all that paper and magazines and all those things kind of congregate there. Just take all those, scoop them into a basket, and then pull out the first one. And the first one might be a magazine. And the question is, are you going to read this magazine? If not, please recycle it or pass it on. If you do intend to read it, create a file or an area near your bed or in your car. Where do you typically read your magazines? That's where that magazine will go. Let's say the second item is a bill, and you know you need to pay it, but today's not the day that you pay it. Create a file that says to pay, and then you stick all the bills in that file so that on the day that you decide to pay your bills, you're going to pull out that file and everything's going to be there. It doesn't have to swim around on your island or on the sidebar or on your tabletop or get, pushed away off to the side or stashed and dashed in a drawer. It can go in the to pay file, and then you can set a date on your calendar or a couple times a month that you actually pay your bills. Now let's say the next one is a newsletter from your homeowners association. You do plan on reading that, but not right now. So create a file that says to read, and everything that you need to read, just plop in that file. Maybe you've been invited to a birthday party, and so maybe you need to purchase a gift, or you need to calendar that item and put it on, make sure it's on your calendar. So whatever action needs to take place with that piece of paper, you want to create a file for that and put it in what's called your action files. And those can be on top of your desk or on top of your, I've created them for the sidebar in some bigger kitchens if they have room for that, to gather up all that paperwork and put it into the action files. That might be useful for you would be the baskets on top of flat surfaces, or maybe you want to put things in drawers. But again, identify the use for those things so they don't become cluttered catch-alls. A lot of times people will do things like stash and dash. They'll say, someone's coming, they'll open up all the drawers and shove everything in and shut them up. And they become more overwhelming and more of a clutter catcher and a disorganized mess. The next suggestion is to go vertical. So sometimes, remember when we talked about the complaints that people had? Sometimes people were complaining they don't have enough space. Well, take a look around your walls and think of how you might be able to create some shelving and then put decorative totes on that shelving, and inside maybe you'll have things like note cards or stationery or little collectibles if you collect things. So think about how you can go vertical with the beautiful shelving and decorative totes. The next one is, if you love it and use it, display it or make it easy to access. Photos and artwork displayed. I don't know how many times I've worked with clients and found in their closets 5 or 10 different framed photos or artwork, and they're just, collecting dust in the corner of their closet where actually a vacuum cleaner might fit nicely. Something that we do need to hide. We don't need to hide our photo and our artwork. If you love it, display it somewhere. If you love it and you don't have room for it, take a picture of it so you remember it and then give it to someone or send it to a donation or an auction item perhaps. So think about those things, but just, packed away or tucked away, hidden away isn't showing respect for those items, and we want you to feel good about those items and post them on your walls or hang them. So question the use of off-site storage. This one is one that I want you to question yourself. Are these things that you're loving and using and that's why you're storing them? Maybe it's seasonal items. Maybe you have a small home and you put all of your winter, fun activities, skis and snowboards and things like that in an off-site storage, which is great because you have a system, it's working for you, it isn't causing you stress. They aren't unanswered decisions. So sometimes we stick things in storage because we don't want to make a decision regarding the item. So what I would challenge you to do is make decisions about all of your items. Are these items bringing you joy? Are they enhancing your life? Or are they overwhelming you and causing you stress? Those should be the indicators of keeping or donating, because what's stressing you out might be just what someone else is looking for. And so why pay $100 a month to store it when you know you never intend to use it? So off-site storage can be an excellent resource and tool, but not to just store items that you are regretfully hanging on to and you know that you never will use or make use of in any positive way, and they might be causing you stress. So think about the off-site storage. The next one is special occasion items. So you rarely use them except for on special occasions. So think about what is a reasonable number of, let's say, Easter or Valentine's Day or Christmas totes and tubs. What's a reasonable number? And then realize, what do you have room for in your home? And try to keep it to that. So after every holiday, sort and purge the items that you used. Did you love to decorate with this particular item this year? If not, pass it on. Make room for something new. Because oftentimes we do get new items on those special occasions, don't we? And so you don't have to keep everything else that you have. You might be able to trade one for one. So a new item comes in, an old one goes out. But again, if you're using it and loving it, keep it. Find the storage for it or create the storage for it. But if you know you really aren't loving and using it, pass it on to someone who can. Now, the next one we talk about is, I love this story because I worked with a family, and the mom, we talked about what's really stressing you out, what's overwhelming you. And she said, well, right now I'm just reflecting back on this morning. And she said, and it's pretty typical of every morning, my kids come downstairs and they don't have their socks on and their shoes are in the pantry or in the mudroom. And so I have to yell at them, we're in a hurry, to run back up and put their socks on and then come back down again and get their shoes on and head out to the bus. And we happened to be working in her kitchen, and she had amazing storage in her kitchen. She had tons of drawers all the way around, and we put like items with like items. We kept everything she wanted to keep. We found homes for it, and it worked really well. Well, what happened was we had 2 or 3 drawers that weren't being used. and they were the ones closest to the mudroom. And so I suggested that she keep her socks in that drawer, in the two bottom drawers of the kitchen. She thought I was crazy at first, and I said, well, how about if you just try it for a week and see how it goes? And so she knew she had the space in the kitchen. It wasn't going to be used for anything else. She knew she had a challenge with kids coming downstairs without their socks on. Her mudroom was downstairs where the shoes and the laundry. And so she worked through an entire cycle. Kids coming down, kids getting socks out of the kitchen drawer, putting them on, dirty clothes, they went into the mudroom, and she was able to wash them. And then they made a game out of, pairing up the socks and throwing them into the kitchen drawer. And so she loved that idea. And so sometimes you need to create a system that really doesn't make sense for most people, but it makes sense for you. So there isn't a one size fits all for every situation, but think outside the box. Get creative. Put those socks in the kitchen if that makes sense to you. And of course your kids are going to grow up and know that socks can belong in their bedroom or in a kitchen if they want. But you don't have to be tied to what's supposed to happen. Be tied to what works for you and your family, and do that for a stage, a phase, a stage, or do it forever, whatever works. And remember that positive self-talk. And isn't it great to set your kids for the day with really positive remarks rather than go back upstairs and get your socks on, So being able to love and hug them and kiss them goodbye versus focusing on what they didn't do. All right, the next one is setting limits. Sometimes we have people that really want to collect a lot of things, or they find something at the store where the items are such a great deal, they buy 100 of them because they know they want to give them out as gifts. All those things are great things, but you have to make sure you follow through with what your intention is. So if you buy, let's just make it reasonable, 20 items that were on a discounted price, set a project in motion for who you will give those items to, and then actually start to do it. Because I've worked with many clients that have gift shelves, tubs, overflowing into 10 and 12 different areas in their homes because they have good intentions, but they actually never deliver the items, or they can't find them when they want to deliver them, and so they too become clutter. So create limits, create an actual home for those gift items. So let's talk about setting limits. What is a reasonable limit for your holiday tubs or your Christmas tubs? And I just put 6 here, but whatever is reasonable for you, and then make sure that you have the area where you can store them. 2 gift tubs or 1 shelf. 1 bag of extra bags. This is another one. So many of you keep all the bags, but forget to reuse them. And so you have bags coming out of every drawer, every cupboard, every bedroom. And so think about what is a reasonable amount of bags that you should be using. And then go ahead and recycle or pass on those other bags because there are other people that want them. Think about your winter coats. This is just an example. So what is a reasonable number of winter coats for you? And everyone's going to be different. Some people don't even have a winter, so maybe they have 1 coat for cold weather. Other people love coats, and so they want to have 5 or 10. But again, designate a closet specifically for those coats if you are someone that loves to change a coat every day. There's nothing wrong with keeping what you love and use. Create a system for actually using it. So what's a reasonable number of magazines? Now, magazines are something that I deal a lot with my clients because they feel that magazine was sent to them. Either they paid for it or maybe it's a freebie, but that there's something in there that's going to tell them something. And so they can't pass it on. They can't get rid of it. And so what I encourage those clients to do is to come up with a reasonable number of magazine subscriptions. And so maybe it's, how many magazines can you reasonably read in a month? What is that number? And if you're someone who loves to read magazines, great, then order a whole bunch of them. If you're someone that never reads magazines and they pile up in the baskets and in the bathroom and in your bedroom and in the kitchen counter, and you feel guilt and shame for not reading those, then you need to limit the amount coming into your home. And you need to create a system, and it's okay. because you can't have that negative self-talk anymore. Those recipes in those magazines that you rip out, and they cause clutter as well, have an intention of how you're going to use that recipe. When are you going to use that recipe? How is that piece of paper going to convert into the actual making of the craft or making of the recipe? So if any of this is ringing a bell, you're not alone. There are many clients out there with the same issues and challenges of all these great intentions but never following through, and then the guilt. And so my challenge to you, if you get anything out of this recording, is that you just make a decision to stop. Stop the guilt, stop the negative self-talk, create a system, give yourself permission to let these things go, or create time in your schedule to attend to them. Otherwise, those intentions turn into negative self-talk like we've talked about. So what is reasonable for the magazines, the catalogs, things like that? You can cancel those subscriptions at any time, or you could have them forwarded to your favorite dental office, and they can have the magazines, and you can go read them when you're at the dental chair. All right, so the next one is cookbooks. So this one, anytime I'm organizing a kitchen, people will have, 20, 25, 30 cookbooks, and they'll also have an iPad. And so I'll say to them, okay, let's say you want to make banana bread. You have some bananas on your kitchen shelf, and they're getting a little too brown for you to actually eat. So you want to make banana bread. What are you going to do? How are you going to find the banana bread recipe? And 9 times out of 10, they say they will go to their iPad, they'll look up banana bread recipe on Google, and they'll make the recipe right from there. Okay, so then what is a reasonable amount of cookbooks to have if you aren't even using cookbooks for your recipes? Ask yourself that question. Maybe your only sorting today after listening to this is just going to be attending to the cookbooks. Or maybe the magazines really struck a chord with you. Think about the one thing you could do today and actually take action. Take action and say, am I loving and using this? All right, then I'm going to be respectful of it, and I'm either going to schedule time or I'm going to put it somewhere where I can view it every day. So think about those things. So cookbooks, what is a reasonable number for you? If you don't use any of them, pass them on. If you want to keep 2 or 3 for decoration in your home, or you have a favorite recipe in there, then great, save those and find a place for them and make sure to set time to use them. All right, now the final step is everything has a home. Remember when we talked about those socks? Now typically professional organizers probably wouldn't tell you to put your socks in the kitchen because they think there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. I don't know if all professional organizers are like that, but my philosophy is to make sure that you put the things where you're going to use them, because that will be the most efficient and productive. So remember when we go back to that wrapping paper, where do you wrap presents? If it's in your kitchen on the island, are there any cupboards or cabinets within your kitchen that you aren't using that you might be able to tuck that wrapping paper away? Not the Christmas holiday paper. You can put all that in the tubs that you're storing for Christmas time. But the regular birthday or new baby or wedding paper, could you keep some of that in the area where you actually wrap presents? Keep a pair of scissors and keep tape. And then you're going to increase that productivity. You'll know this is where I wrap, this is where I keep it. Where do your kids do homework? Make sure they have all the tools necessary to be successful at completing their homework. So they're not running around the house looking for a pencil, looking for a protractor, looking for a ruler, looking for, scratch paper. Set them up for success. Same thing you do for them to set them up for success, set yourself up for success in every space in your home, so that you have everything you need to carry out the task at hand in a very efficient way. Now the next one, so we talk about where are you going to use it. That's kind of, what I just spoke about. Where are you going to use this? The next one is prime real estate. So you think about a chef, and the chef is stirring risotto, let's say, and you really can't leave that pot. You have to stir that the whole time it's cooking. But he wants to add spices to that. So think about the prime real estate right around your stove top. You want the spices and the stirring and the hot pads and everything you need within arm's reach. You don't want to have to run to the pantry which is 20 steps away in order to get something to complete the task of cooking that risotto. So what I would love for you to do is really think about your office and having everything you use on a daily basis within arm's reach of your chair. Make sure that you are able to sharpen your pencil if you use a pencil. Make sure that all of your computer and cords and everything necessary, your phone, is all within arm's reach. That's called prime real estate. Remember, we talked about those action files. Those are ones you use on a daily basis. Keep those within arm's reach of where you are. Now, the reference files, you can scoot your chair over to the other side of the room or wherever you need to go, maybe long-term storage. That's kept, somewhere even further away. So think about, organizers often use the analogy of the pilot sitting in the pilot's seat, and he or she can reach anything they need all within an arm's reach in order to operate that plane. So think about that. Think about each task that you want to do and have everything necessary right there, because that's going to increase your productivity and efficiency. Is this the best use of my space? So try it out. Whatever you've created, try it out for a while and say, oh, this isn't really working well. I'd rather keep my shoes over here, or I really need to keep my jewelry in the bathroom because I like to look at myself while I'm putting it on and I like to look in the mirror. Could I create a space in my bathroom for my jewelry? So think about what is the best use of the space. What belongs and what doesn't. Okay, remember, if it doesn't belong in that space, we need to put it somewhere else, keep elsewhere. And then the key is really putting it back after you're finished using it. And so my dad taught me this one because he would always go looking for the scissors in the exact same spot all the time where we were supposed to keep the scissors. And if we didn't put them back, we would hear about it. So you need to make sure that whatever it is you're using, when you are finished with it, put it back where it was. And then you'll always be able to maintain that space and that organization. Now, things can, life can take over and things can get cluttered up after you've just organized them. So you need to schedule, 10-15 minutes to clear your hot spots. So anything that's horizontal is going to collect stuff. It's just a natural thing. So turn on some fun music, dance around the house, and clear those hot zones and put things back where they belong. And encourage the rest of the family to do the same. So maybe right after dinner, before everybody goes their separate ways, you spend 15 minutes and everybody, clears off the hot zones. And like I said, turn on some fun music, dance around, and put things away. All right, now I have just a one-page takeaway. I know that was a lot of information. This is a very long video, and but I wanted to give you the 5 stages. And I wanted to make sure that you can pause this at any time and just dive right in and try it. But the first thing to remember is love yourself up. So taking care of you is the top priority during this process. It can be overwhelming and it can be stressful, and it can also be taxing physically to get organized. So make sure you're taking care of yourself throughout the process. Keep it if you love it and use it. Otherwise, pass it on, because someone will love it and use it. Someone besides you. When you find a great bargain at a garage sale or at a thrift store, other people are going to love the stuff that you aren't using. Be aware of what you bring into your home once you have the space organized. So just because you have some vacant shelves and some vacant drawers doesn't mean you need to go out and buy a bunch of stuff and fill them up. Leave that space there so that you could be open to the idea of other things coming in that you don't even know about. But remember, don't bring it in if you don't love it or use it. Don't leave your sorting space during the sort and purge until your time is up. We talked about that during the take action, keep here, keep elsewhere, donate and toss. You're also evaluating and classifying each item. You don't want to leave until your time is up because you're going to get distracted. So put those things that you love and use but belong elsewhere in a tub to be delivered at the very end. So have a strong why or reason for organizing each space. So a pretty strong why would be, I want to park my car in the garage before it starts to snow so I don't have to clear off the windshield all the time. That's a huge why. And I would encourage anyone that's worried about that to make sure to get that garage sorted and organized enough to at least get that car in there. Another one might be because you have an entire room that isn't being used effectively because it's become the stash and dash room, or as one of my clients calls it, the scream room. She would open the door, throw things in, scream, and then shut the door because it was filled with all sorts of some treasures, some junk, some things she held on to because they were delayed decisions that she didn't know what to do with the stuff. And she either felt like it came as a gift or it was paid for, and so I can't get rid of it. Well, yes, you can. If it isn't serving you, please pass it on to someone it will serve. So follow the steps in order. Remember this one, we don't want you buying the sorting tubs or the filing systems until you're at step 4, because you really don't know what you want to store or file until you've actually have an idea of what all the items are that are going to be in that place. So follow the steps in order, otherwise those items become more of the clutter. And remember, it does look worse before it gets better, so be prepared. And if you can, set 3 or 4 hour chunks of time to work on this consecutively. So don't spend a 4-hour chunk of time and then not get back to it for another month, unless it's somewhere where you really don't, where it's not disturbing your daily activities. Feed and water my decision-making machine. It's really important when you're in there that you have granola bars and water and maybe hard-boiled eggs and some meat slices, because you are going to be making decision after decision, one right after the other. And it's taxing, physically taxing, lifting all the items, as well as emotionally taxing. There are some real emotional things that come up when I'm working with my clients, because a lot of these items are items that have been passed down from generation to generation. There are typically stories regarding these things, and oftentimes when we're not dealing with the stuff, but we're dealing with the paperwork, we also run into decisions that are very difficult for people. So if you need support, hire a professional organizer or ask a friend to come and be that support for you as you go through some of these hard decisions. Some of them will be very easy and you'll be able to move really quickly, and then other things you're like, oh, this is really tugging at my heartstrings. You may even cry. It's going to be bringing up things that are really that may hurt or may feel really good and need to be celebrated. So sometimes it's great just to have a buddy there with you during this decision-making machine time of sorting and purging. Now, celebrate your success no matter how big or small. Let's say after this, after you've listened to this, you simply want to deal with your cookbooks. Now, that is a great opportunity, because it's one thing, you can do a scavenger hunt throughout your entire house, find all of the cookbooks, bring them before you, spread them out on the table, and say, what ones do I love and use? Maybe you're ready to just pitch them all and donate all of them, but maybe you really want to save 5 or 6 of them. And so you pick out your favorite ones, and then you let the others go, and you free up that shelf space, and you know exactly where those are, and maybe you even pick a recipe or 2 to cook over the next week. So celebrate that success, whether it's organizing your entire garage or simply organizing your cookbooks. And then stick to the 5-step simple system. So first of all, prepare. Remember, we go back to spending the time to actually visualize how you want the space to look, who's involved in that space, what do we need to do in order to prepare that space, and why do we even want to do it? And evaluate and classify. You're going to start in one area of the room and work your way all the way around, not missing any items. You can't skip an item. You have to make a decision about that particular item, because once we start skipping items, that's how delayed decisions come about, and that's when we end up owning storage units and being overwhelmed by too much clutter. So taking action, remember, is it something you're going to keep here, keep elsewhere, donate, or toss, or all those other labels that we talked about earlier as well, the shred, the long-term projects, things like that. The next one is contain and display. Now this is when you can repurpose items that you already have, like tubs and totes and baskets and file systems, or you can go out and purchase new ones. But you know what you need. You're not just buying things because you think it will help you get organized, because it won't. You've already done the sort and purge, and now you know what type of container or display case that you need in order to honor the things that you have, because they're bringing you joy and you love them and you use them. And then finally, everything has a home, and that's not where we tell you to put it, but where you are going to use it. Where will you go to retrieve that item because it fits the definition of your space and you need it for that particular activity? And that will help with your productivity and your efficiency. So again, it's Jewels Muller, founder and CEO of Chicks Connect, bringing to you the easy 5-step system for getting organized. Thank you and have a great day.